I really want to warmly welcome you all to the first, and I hope the first of very many, annual conferences of the Career Colleges Trust. My name is Ruth Gilbert, and I have the privilege of being Chief Executive of the charity, the Trust. We're here to celebrate and to reflect on from its first year of operation. And alongside some keynotes I'll come to in a moment, we've paused on two themes. And I say pause because these are themes that we see running for a very long time. We don't see them as simply themes for the day, or indeed even themes for the year ahead. But certainly for us, talking about digital technology and talking about enterprise often come in the same sentence. They come in the same sentence because we're talking about the digital economy, the digital environment that we operate in. And indeed, we are forever looking at ways in which we can improve the employability of young people. And that's the united common cause that we come together in today. As a charity, and indeed colleagues in the room, we're all here with that common purpose of improving the job prospects and the career opportunities of young people, and doing so through career-led education, industry and employer-led education. And I want to really take us through some thank yous in a moment, but before I do, I want to just introduce you to our panel at the front. We're very lucky today to have our founder, Will Baker, our chairman, Luke Johnson, and Penny Power as our keynotes today, who will be covering and highlighting some of the key challenges and opportunities we face on the themes that we've set for today. And our overall agenda is on all tables for you as a point of reference. This morning we're focusing on those themes, setting out an agenda and indeed making some announcements about the Trust plans for the future. We're then making sure there's plenty of time for networking, and there will be a break as well in the morning. We've tried to seat you with colleagues who have perhaps a shared common interest, perhaps a shared theme or an industry of focus for your career college. We also want to make sure that you get a chance to network with others through the day, so very deliberately longer sessions to interact amongst yourselves throughout the session today. And this afternoon we're going to look at our services in more detail, and also have a panel reflection on our first year of operation and indeed plans going forward, and hear from those brave pioneers who opened for the first year this year as well. So some very important thank yous, and I really want to really highlight to you it's a really quite a long list actually of thank yous. First of all, to our chairman and trustees, who are all represented today on the tables with you, and indeed over here at the front. Our chairman and our trustees have all made significant donations and supported the Trust very directly with practical and financial support. They've invested in systems and infrastructure, and they've also provided a lot of practical help, and I'm going to highlight some of those to you now. I want to thank the Director General of Sitting Guilds, Chris Jones, for giving up his time as Vice Chair over the last year. I want to thank Pearson for agreeing to map the GCSE Maths and English to the current qualifications, as well as to the new vocational qualifications, to help with how we set the context for the delivery of Maths and English for work and for life. I want to thank the Edge Foundation, notably for not only its practical direct help as trustees of the Career Colleges Trust, but also for the support through the Innovation Fund, granting over £200,000 worth of investment into career colleges in the first year. I want to thank Helping Hands, a charity that's provided us with a range of free services. For those who don't know, that's why we have an address in Stockport. And we're very grateful for that, because not only is that our registered address, but all our telephony, all our mail services and various other support like IT runs through there, for which we have no charge. So thank you very much for that support. It does mean, obviously, that we are able to really focus the funds that we get in direct practical help and not in overheads for the organisation itself. And indeed, to our wider group of trustees, I cannot count how many times I've picked up the phone and said, do you know someone who can? Do you know an industry lead in this sector? And they have all rallied to support us with that very vital, practical help regionally for the career colleges we're in the throes of setting up, and indeed have done so over the last year. As a team as well, I'm going to just very briefly pay homage to the Career College Trust team, to Alina, to Bev, to Karen, to Claire, and our very new addition to Danielle here at the front. The team themselves work hard to research opportunities and to help with some of the practicalities of arranging and supporting our setup. And they've been responsible for highlighting and supporting opportunities for £350,000 worth of revenue investment through bids that we've endorsed, highlighted and showcased to colleagues in the room today, such as Teach2. And of course, I really want to thank our two brave pioneers, Bromley College and Hugh Baird College. You are brave because the first, it's the hardest. It's the hardest because you're setting new ground, you are piloting new ways of working, and I'm sure you'll all take the opportunity to talk to them during the breaks, as well as hearing their reflections through the conference.
Thank you very much, Ruth. I think what you're a part of, or considering joining, is a sort of experiment. And I think they're very important. They're extremely hard to do, generally speaking, take such risks inside the public sector. So I think one of the reasons why Career Colleges is a standalone non-profit entity, a social enterprise outside the state structure, is because we are embarking, as Ruth said, on a sort of pioneering journey, and through charitable support, it's easier to do that outside of, central or even local government, where, as I'm sure you would agree, things can take a long time and there is a great deal of risk-averse behaviour. The fact is that if you don't experiment and try new things, nothing changes. I've spent 35 odd years experimenting in business, and I've certainly made mistakes and had failures, but they are part of the learning journey, and unquestionably the successes I've achieved would not have happened without the errors. And I think that large organisations, institutions, and the educational system is obviously characterised by those, are generally speaking very risk averse, because as far as they're concerned, the downsides are greater than the upside. But as Lord Baker was saying earlier, in the 21st century, nations like Britain are going to have to adapt pretty rapidly if we are to remain competitive. There is that scary statistic put forward by Angela Merkel a couple of years ago, whereby the EU as a whole is something like 7% of the world's population, 25% of the world's GDP, but over 50% of the world's welfare spending. And the adjustment that's got to go on right across westernised Europe and other parts of the world is pretty dramatic. And therefore the solution, or at least one of the critical solutions to the challenges we face in the coming years, is to have an appropriately skilled workforce. And I think that's what Career Colleges is all about. I realised some years after having started in business, starting companies and running businesses, is that the key thing I was contributing was creating jobs. And essentially, at heart, that's what entrepreneurs do. It's almost collateral damage from them trying to make fortunes, but what they actually do is create jobs. And as Lord Baker said at the beginning, we do have quite a serious mismatch in this country between the skills that many of our young people leave school or university with and the jobs that are required in the marketplace out there. So, for example, I'm heavily involved in the hospitality industry right across restaurants, contract catering, pubs, bars, nightclubs, hotels and so forth. and there are hundreds of thousands of job vacancies in that sector. They're only going to grow. It's recently been announced that they're going to change the visa requirements for Chinese visitors. So when they get their single visa to come and visit all the Schengen countries, they're going to include Britain. I predict that in the next 2 years, the number of Chinese visitors to this country will double. And the prospects for London is already the most visited city in the world now, and on many tables is the most popular city to visit. And the opportunities for our country in this sort of sector are immense. And the whole concept now of actually a staycation rather than always going abroad on holiday is growing too. So the sort of opportunities for young people are incredible. As Lord Baker says, you know, we import too many people from abroad to come and work in our hospitality industry, and we should be using our own labour here. And what I'm hoping is that with colleges like Bromley, which I think is going to ramp up its number of students quite sharply in the coming year or two, they'll be able to deal. When I was at a big catering event last week, and the single biggest complaint amongst all the bosses I talked to was finding and keeping staff. And there's no doubt that salaries in that sector are rising at least 5% per annum, maybe nearer 10 now, because suddenly it's getting harder and harder to find skilled people. And as you all know, high turnover of staff is a killer to any business. So career colleges are here to, as Lord Baker says, adopt the sort of model that they've had in countries like Austria and Switzerland and Germany for some years, where it's a focus on technical, specialist, practical skills. I think the point about a career college is that it is focused, and I think that will attract both parents of students, students themselves, faculty and employers. So career colleges are designed ideally to have at least half of their board employers and people from industry who are to act as partners to the college. You know, in a way it's self-help in the sense that companies will obviously be helping to train their workforce for the years to come, but also it's a form of giving back. And I actually think that amongst lots of managers and entrepreneurs I know, the single big area of public good that they want to be most involved with is education. One of the great complaints every time you know, get a CBI or an IOD survey is they say young people aren't work ready, they are not appropriately qualified, the training they're receiving in our educational system isn't right. Well, this is one of the key answers. That's what career colleges are here to do. And I think this employer engagement is absolutely vital, and it's a two-way street. We and you are going to have to cajole and persuade industry to participate so that you know, it feels like a joint venture, if you like, in each case. And it means that all those students are highly confident that they will get a job at the end of their course if they don't want to go into university, and that the students who are being trained in career colleges are acquiring not just the technical skills and the qualifications, but also, I think, the attitude to work. And it addresses very directly, I think, this you know, repetitive complaint that you know, young people leaving education aren't work ready, and that a lot of employers are having to almost retrain them in order to provide them with the necessary skills to function usefully in the workplace. And bridging this gap in our economy, addressing that challenge, is, I think, a vital piece of work that we're engaged with here. And I think, as Lord Baker said, it's not easy to start things from scratch. This is the early days. I hope that next year, with any luck, this conference will be twice the size. And having been involved in early 1993, I and some colleagues took control of a business called Pizza Express when it had 12 restaurants. I think it has about 600 today. And during my involvement as chairman, we grew it about 20-fold. And so, having experienced that sort of journey over a number of occasions, I know how exciting it can be, and to be in at the ground level in one of these sort of little revolutions is very exciting. And so I urge those of you who are considering taking this journey with us to get on board. I think that you will find that there's a small but very committed team, and that we will do our level best to try and help you at every stage, not just with curriculum or recruiting students and faculty, but also in terms of engaging the LEPs locally, who do have capital sums that may be available to help fund buildings or equipment, to get industry locally engaged, both in terms of becoming directors, non-executives or trustees, or providing equipment themselves and engaging in the actual training, so that they're there mentoring and they're providing master classes and so forth. Because I think that in a way, the more committed the local employers are, the more relevant and practical and pragmatic the training and the actual coursework is, then the more likely it is the college will succeed, and the more likely that the students will get jobs, and that there will become a virtuous circle of success. And although remarkable things have been achieved over recent years in terms of reducing unemployment, as Lord Baker said, there are still a stubborn number of young people particularly who are unemployed and probably without the relevant skills, and we want to address that challenge going forward, so that a higher proportion of people leaving a full-time education have the right sort of qualifications, the right sort of training, the right sort of attitude. They are work ready and hungry to go out there and fill all those job vacancies in the range of areas we've talked about, such as construction, the healthcare industries, hospitality, and so forth. And I think that, I've always found that if an organisation is focused rather than overly diverse, it's more likely to succeed. And that's why I think this brand we're building here, and this focus on specific skill for each institution, is the way ahead. And so I applaud you for coming here today. I applaud those of you who've taken the leap and made the commitment. And if we can help, we'd love to. And I think what we're doing here is very important, and I think in the years to come, we will see that we've made big differences to a lot of people's lives.
And this is extraordinary that in fact hospitality employs so many well-trained and sophisticated people from around the world. And there's no reason why youngsters in Britain should not do these jobs. And this is what's happening in schools. Schools are not helping at all. The one technical GCSE which has remained is design and technology, which I introduced to the national curriculum in the 1980s. And only about a third of students now take design and technology. That is the technical qualification at grade 2 GCSE. And in fact, most of them do the rather softer subjects. The good subjects are resistant materials and the electronics and systems of control. And this is what is happening to GCSE design over the last 5 years. It's dropped from over 260,000 to 110,000. So far few people are getting to 16 at schools with any element of technical education or practical learning. And that is a huge mistake in our country at the moment, in my view. It's just as bad as advanced level, 17,000, dropping now down to 14,000 level 3 technical. And this means that the whole direction of the education system at the moment is to concentrate on the academic subjects at the expense of the technical. I think it's a huge mistake when the rest of the world is doing exactly the opposite. And so we are, in career colleges and UTCs, pioneers of a new type of education. And the BTECs as well are going down well, unfortunately, in 14-15. And this is a mistake. Those graphs should be going up, not going down. Now, apprentices. Now, the government is passionate about wanting to increase apprenticeships, quite rightly so, but they really must focus upon proper apprentices at the ages of 16 to 18, in my view. Quite a lot of the large numbers of apprenticeships in their late 20s or early 30s are basically relabeling jobs for people already in work. The whole concept about apprenticeship is that you learn a trade. You learn a trade in a discipline, demanding discipline, usually 2 or 3 years. And anyway, the apprenticeships are all in the wrong sort of things. You've got in business administration and the law, which hitherto have not had any sorts of apprenticeships. You've got a huge increase, 125,000, health and public services, 108,000, retail and commercial enterprise, 87,000, and engineering and manufacturing is 64,830. And I remember I was going around at FE College about 6 months ago, and I met two youngsters with a mop and a brush cleaning up the corridor. And I said, what exam are you going for? They didn't quite know, but they said, we're apprentices. I found that to be extraordinary. You can master a brush and a mop in a morning, but to have an apprenticeship actually doing, as it were, office cleaning is a travesty of what apprenticeships are all about. And so a lot needs to be done and a lot needs to change. And the actual drop, last year, a sort of drop in the number of apprentices at 16 and 18, which is quite the wrong direction of what is happening, really. We're finding in the UTCs that quite a few now want to do apprenticeships. At 16, they're called an advanced apprenticeship, and at 18, they will have a level 3 qualification, A level in maths or English or science or something of that sort. They'll have a BTEC equivalent, and they'll have made things, and they're highly employable to any business. And we're finding quite a lot of our students, and you'll find this in career colleges as well. When you get to 18, I think you'll find quite a few career colleges. If your students want to go on to a university of any sort, they might prefer to a higher apprenticeship. Because at a higher apprenticeship, the company will employ you at £15,000 or £20,000. You've got A levels at level 3 and a technical qualification as well. That's the sort of salary that's paid, somewhere between 12 and 20,000. And you'll be an apprentice. You'll study immediately foundation degree level 4 at the cost of the company, no debt to the student at all. And if they want to go on to do a full honours degree at a major university, again, the company will pay for that. But they won't want to go for 3 years, 5 days a week. They'll probably go for 1 year, 1 day a week or 2 days a week. I think that's going to be the pattern that will have to slowly change, because you've got a great deal of graduate unemployment at the moment in Britain. We talk about people without jobs. It's not just those 600,000 young people. Last year, for example, there's graduates who graduate in law from our universities last year. Only 1 in 4 are employed in the law at proper legal salaries, which are quite high. The other 3/4 are doing clerking jobs or working in bars and restaurants, flipping hamburgers. This is going to be the pattern. I think universities are turning out a lot of people who find it quite difficult to find a job in this sort of society because it's not practical enough. And that's going to be a feature that won't disappear. So this is what the Chief Inspector said, Michael Wilshaw, in a speech. He said, smaller specialist units should be created with stronger links to business, commerce and industry at the age of 14. And this is the way we should be going. It's the way Europe is going. Europe is generally, they have much higher levels of vocational technical education than we have. The country that has the lowest number of NEETs in Europe is Austria. They have the lowest number of young unemployed people. And what they do there, they stop the national curriculum at 14, and they have a series of specialist colleges, like career colleges, like UTCs, like colleges in accountancy, colleges in logistics, or whatever it may be, so the students go that way. And Europe is moving more and more that way. Again, there's quite a big separation in France, and in Germany, which has an excellent system. And we've got to get into that sort of moment. It's going to take some time, and so career colleges and UTCs are the pioneers of this change. And there are 3 ways to fill the school gaps. There's UTCs, we've got 28, we'll have 55 over 2017. Studio schools, which again the Edge Foundation supported, 37, we have 48. Studio schools are quite small schools, 300 students with a big practical bent, and they're proved to be quite popular. And in career colleges, you have 2 at the moment, and Ruth has the ambition to have 15 open by 2016. That's next year. That's Ruth is quite a driver, I can tell you. That is, I'm amazed when she tells me we're going to have another 6 open this year, because it requires a great deal of effort and enthusiasm and direction to make this happen. And from September you'll find us in, this is construction, Lincoln, healthcare, advanced manufacturing. South Tyneside is rather an exception. Computer and digital technology, very important indeed, and hospitality and catering, and more planned. And slowly they'll get known. I was the minister responsible for this area, and I've persuaded him to have Ruth and look in to talk to them about it, because career colleges are going to be a feature in educational landscape. Now this is quite interesting, the beginning of the digital technology. Ruth has realised that we have got more and more control by the technical advances that are happening around us, and we all try and keep up with them. Certainly in the course of my life, I was in the pre-television age. I thought I'd been pre-computers. We had slide rules. We were very clever. We were very, very clever in those days working with slide rules. They all disappeared, items for museums. And the change today is quite dramatic. And Ruth has certainly developed, which is quite unique in any organisation, a digital technology which will benefit to the students and to the staff and to the employers. And it's all in your packs, and it is also covered in this. This is quite complicated. I'll explain it rather than, you won't be able to read it, but the digital technology consists, as far as students are concerned, they want to have the latest access to the latest digital technology. And it's changing all the time. There are new devices being offered, new services being offered. Apps have become very, very important, and also profitable to those who can invent a good app. There's a young boy at King's College School, Wimbledon, who's just doing his A-levels at the moment. In between doing his GCSEs and A-levels, he made £9 million from devising a very clever app which is sold around the world. And so people are realising the opportunities are absolutely amazing in this world if you understand the basic stuff. And also students will also be taught more about social media. They're quite well into that already, but also the advantages of it, how it can be used, possibly also for searching for a job. Staff in itself also, Ruth recognises, need to be brought up to date, and she's going to designate 10 digital champions, one in each of the first 10 colleges. And they will be expected to get level 4 foundation degree in digital technology themselves, and they're also going to brief the other staff. And there's going to be a staff assessment of all the staff in every career college to see whether they're really up to date in digital technology. Also this is useful for employers, because employers need people who are highly literate, just as I told you, Charlie Mayfield and Waitrose. So the purpose of a career college and the purpose of UTC is to make students ready for work. And now this is not the objective of the English education system, and some teachers reject it very strongly. They say, no, we'll educate people and make them rounded, and then when they leave us, water will find its own level. The water sinks as well as rises, and I think it would be much more clear today. And the sorts of things that career colleges and UTCs could do is collaboration and team working, very, very important. Life depends upon team working. You soon learn that when you leave school. And it's very important to have that sort of experience in this sort of college. If you're doing academic subjects, you're studying history or French, you don't do team working, they're solitary individual courses to study. And there's very little team working done in ordinary school today, which is a grave disappointment. We've got to tackle and solve problems, timekeeping, turn up on time at 8:30, get used to that. We have a working day, which is getting much longer than a school day. And as a result of working from 8:30 to 5, and in catering and hospitality, you might have to work well after 5. After all, people do eat after 5 o'clock, after midnight. But certainly, the important point about all of that is that you gain a whole lot more teaching. If you have a curriculum that has 8:30 to 5, in 4 years you gain a whole teaching year, extra year of teaching, because the students are more in the process of learning. Handle materials, yes, use tools and equipment, computers, 3D printers.
Huge privilege to be here. Thank you very much, Ruth, for trusting me and for all of you for listening to me for the next 45 minutes. I always say that I think we're in an attention war apart from anything else. There's so many people in this world now making a noise and being thought leaders and having the avenues and the channels to market to be able to be heard. I think when you get a chance to have this many people in a room in 45 minutes, if I added up every one of those, this is a huge opportunity for me to hopefully influence you on something that's really important to me. It is actually my 25th wedding anniversary today. My husband. So when usually we would have some romantic experience going on, so this is it. So maybe but actually, when I went home and said to Thomas, I got the chance to spend my 25th wedding anniversary with Lord Baker. He completely understood. So 45 minutes, I don't know about you, but some of you are probably thinking, oh my God, that's a long time to listen to one person. And I've really chunked this through so that there is a journey that I want to share with you, because through the journey I can almost speed you through some of the very painful and very inspiring lessons that I've had in this digital world since 1998. And then I want to end really looking at yourself, you as individuals, and where you sit within the digital economy, but more important than that, where you sit as a digital citizen in this world of 3 billion people that are online, and whether you personally are taking responsibility for your footprint and what matters to you, and whether you're getting your voice out there. Because that's really what drove me and my husband Thomas to start this journey. So if I now flick through. First of all, I would really like to pay homage to the fact that career colleges have embedded digital in their agenda. And as you will learn today, they are launching the digital strategy, which I've had a great opportunity to see and read. And quite rightly, Bev Jones in the room should be congratulated here and now for this paper, which I very much enjoyed reading. And critically, you'll have already felt the theme today. It talks about the importance of high quality relationship with employers. And as you'll hear through the journey that I've had and where I come from, that's something which is definitely something that needs to be healed in this industry and for the economy. And also something is the background that I come from as an employer and working with a large number of employers around the digital strategy. So there's a digital strategy, but there's also the digital curriculum. And how can you form a digital curriculum unless you have empathy? And empathy in my life has been something that's been really important to me. Sometimes I've been told from a very young child that I have too much empathy, and sometimes I spend a lot of time helping executives have more empathy. And actually being able to walk in the shoes of and understand the life of an employer and therefore be able to mould a curriculum is critical. And I do think that I always feel frightened saying things like this in front of groups of major experts, but I would say that that's one of the areas that I will talk about later that I think is really hard around digital for further education colleges, and I hope to substantiate the reasons why I say that. Also, the critical nature of mindset. It's a word that a lot of people use in any shifts that we need to create in a very fast-moving economy, and creating a digital mindset is actually at the root of this digital change that we are seeing in the world, and is what actually drove Thomas and I in 1998 to build the community that we did, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. First of all, I want to start with an anchor point in my life, which has a bit of an iconic moment for me in my life in work. One of the things that I love about career colleges is it's focused on vocation. I had zero self-esteem running through the school education system. It didn't suit me. I just found it very hard, as I'm sure many people in education today still do. And it wasn't until I went into a vocation, until I went into a career, that I started to feel I had some form of self-esteem and self-worth and worth to others. And it started, my career started at the age of 19. I'd failed to get into physiotherapy to work with cerebral palsy children because of my academic qualifications. And in the gap year before going to study psychology, I went into IT. And it was a recruitment consultant who met me when I was working in a pub and said, you should go into sales and save up some money for going to university. And it didn't seem right to me. I wanted to go into something far more altruistic than that. But I was sent on a telesales marketing course, age 19, and taught a horribly cold method of basically manipulating a customer into buying from you. And it didn't feel right to me, and I thought this is definitely not something I'm going to have the skills for. And when I was put back on a telesales desk and selling Hewlett Packard printers and Microsoft software and all sorts of stuff in the IT distribution world, I really struggled with it, doing telesales. Until one day, about 3 weeks into my job, a guy called Roland Hewlin answered the phone as I rang out. He had a terrible cold. He was feeling really rough, and I said, "Oh my goodness, Roland, I'm really sorry to trouble you. I'm ringing from Bitech. We provide computers and software, but you don't sound very well." And he said, "Well, who are you?" And I said, "My name's Penny Ross," as it was at the time. "But don't worry, I think you should go home and I'll speak to you another day because you don't sound very well." And put the phone down, did a notch saying I'd made a call, which is all that seemed to matter. And at lunchtime, I went out to buy my sandwich, and next to the till was packets of tunes. And I thought, well, I would like to send those to Roland. Poor chap didn't sound very well. So I went back and I took his tunes, and I was only $4,500 a year, I remember that, and by now was living alone. I didn't have a great deal of money, to say the least. And I said to my supervisor, could I use the franking machine, you remember those, and a jiffy bag to send this to Roland? And she was really angry with me. She said, "Don't be ridiculous, you get back on the phone." So I used my own money and I paid the secretary for the franking machine, and I paid for the jiffy bag, and I put them in at the post and I sent them to him, and said, "I hope you feel better soon." And 3 days later, a phone call was put through to me from Roland on this bank of about 200 telesales people, and he said to take out a pen and paper, and he gave me this huge order of lasers and all sorts of printers and software. And so I thanked him very much, and I took it to my supervisor and said, "How do I put this into the system?" And she said, "How did you get that order?" And I said, "I sent him a packet of tunes." And that was the moment that I really realised that commerce was about relationships, and it was about building trust, and it was about being more interested in the other person than being interested in your own self-gain. And I was lucky because my boss, her supervisor, actually welcomed my attitude and made me supervisor quite quickly, and I ended up having a fantastic career in the IT industry. And at 28 was lucky enough to have my first child out of 3. Now, during the period, I gave up work effectively in 1992, leaving the IT industry. Thomas carried on very much in the IT industry and keeping me in touch. And he would come home and talk to me about the e-commerce industry. And I wasn't that excited by it. And I thought, is this because I've got baby brain, or is it just that it's not that exciting? Because business will always find a new channel to market. But I said to him one day, looking at him as a striving entrepreneur, working really hard for his family, and a natural networker, and I said to him, I really feel that this internet thing is far more exciting than e-commerce. It's much more about the connectivity of people, connectivity of us all around the world. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could network online as business people? Now, this was 4 years before LinkedIn, 6 years before Facebook, 8 years before Twitter. Nobody had done such a thing. Thomas said, well, that's an interesting idea. And we gave birth to this company called Academy, which was the world's first social network for business. It's a long story, and actually, if any of you want to buy me a glass of wine and give me a sofa and a therapy session, I will share that with you. But we did, for 14 years, we managed an amazing network of employers across 200 countries, 52 countries. We did offline events, 5,000 offline events a year. And we were really proud of this amazing community that we created that was really born from our belief that people should connect, but critically that they should connect as friends and have the mindset as a friend. Now the term social then was born. It wasn't us that gave birth to that. And we see now what is really relevant in the industry to us all, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. When LinkedIn was launched in 2002, obviously it was disruptive for us, no doubt about it. We were organically born, British company, very proud of the data, very proud of the way that we could manage our members, but we didn't have $330 million. But more than that, More than that, LinkedIn wasn't asking the business world to change its mindset. It wasn't saying be a friend. It wasn't saying connect in an open way with one another. It was saying here's a business network, don't change your attitudes, just connect with other business people. And it kept everybody very much in their cerebral mind of what I am as a person. And what Academy taught us was really fundamental. And that was the 650,000 members that we had in there, emotionally connected with one another as friends as well as business people at a local and global level. And as a result of that, 45% of them exported. They built the most incredible trusted brands as individuals. And we saw a community that was growing by GDP year on year because of the knowledge sharing that happened. We learned as individuals what it meant to be a servant leader, how to lead a community, what it meant to lead a community. And we learned by some errors, and mostly by the fact that we were natural leaders within that type of environment because we believed in this world. I wrote a blog in 2002 called Emotional Wealth Leads to Financial Wealth. It was a massively engaged blog on our site about how if you're in business, if you feel emotionally strong and have self-esteem and self-worth and understand what your voice is in the world, and almost going back to the Maslow theory of hierarchy of needs, then you will become more financially stronger because of the people you attract towards you, the people that believe in you, and because of the way your brand will grow. We learn how to have an opinion, and that is really important. Having an opinion and realising that although the opinion might mean that you will get critics, then learning that there are no statues to critics in this world. And if you really want to create change, you have to have an opinion, you have to have the vision and the tenacity to follow that through and not be drowned by the volumes of people that will want the world to not change, which exists out there. We learned how lonely it is to be a home worker, and we now have 5 million people in this country who have businesses, micro businesses, or 76% of that 5 million are sole traders. And we learnt what it meant to be connected online and offline with other people where you could emotionally connect, and saw the amazing impact that had on their lives. We also learnt that digital is best learnt through osmosis. So imagine when you walk in or you're within a world where other people are inspired and excited by digital, and you have friends that will sit and show you what that means. The world of workshops can be quite a dangerous world because I believe that they give massive stress to the people that attend, and they go back not knowing how to manage the capacity in their own lives and drive this change, and they don't know what should motivate that change. We learned digital disruption, and we learned that to our peril. We lost our home, and we realised that this is a cruel, cruel world. And in fact, just announced today, even Barclays are now threatened by Apple and their Apple Pay app, and how that's going to impact the banking world. So nobody's safe unless they understand what digital means. And we learned what digital citizenship means, how to be an individual within this world, and how important that is. So the lessons we learned weren't massive. How do you apply those lessons to others as you go forward? Well, in 2012, when we no longer had Academy, Thomas and I went in two directions, not in our marriage, thankfully. Thomas went the route of managing the executives in the world, or particularly in this country, but now working in America as well, and helping leaders of organisations understand how to become socially connected. And I went the route of working with young people. And that route started by me being invited by Mark Prisk, the Minister at the time, to come into government, which I have to say was a bit of a run around my house naked moment. Thankfully not in Westminster. And that was because we were really standing in a very painful place. We hadn't maintained our business to the stage of funding that Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter had. And we also weren't a Chamber of Commerce or an Institute of Directors or any of those notable institutions that the government listens to, but yet we had massive influence and understanding around engagement. And so when Mark Prisk said we're going to be closing Business Link and the regional development agencies, would you come in because you seem to be the only person that understands online engagement, I was really excited to be invited into those think tanks. And what I discovered in there is not everybody listens, sadly. People do have their own agendas and have their own decisions made. But I also learned that the technology, the digital industry was being seen as a sector, and that's fantastic, the birth of Tech City, Media City. But I said, what about the 5 million businesses out there that wouldn't call themselves digital businesses, but they have to evolve. They have to change. Their back office systems have to change, and their attitude towards how they market and engage have to change, and they have to become digital businesses. In fact, as Roland Dune says, who's the CEO of Telefonica, if you don't have a digital strategy, you don't have a business strategy, which is so true. And so, as a result of that, I wrote the Digital Business Britain Manifesto in 2011 and made 8 pledges, and it was fantastic from an entrepreneurial point of view to note down 8 pledges and say these are the things that need to happen for UK PLC to have a digital mindset. And that really has become a massive anchor point for me, and what gives me great happiness is occasionally when I reread it, I realise how much I am ticking through those pledges. We've talked about skills shortage. Telefonica did a study and said that by 2017 there's going to be a shortage of 750,000 places, vacancies for skills, of which they believe that a third of that, 250,000, could easily be filled by a digital generation. But yeah, I didn't think young people had that suitable pathway, as we have talked about today, into that employment. I also felt a great concern over the fact that our business coaches didn't have digital skills. And in fact, many of the business coaches I talked to felt that Facebook was a waste of time, and in fact that went through when you talk to young people and ask them what they feel about their going into a career of using Twitter and Facebook and into the business world. They were almost embarrassed to talk about it because they'd been told by their parents they were wasting their time, and all that happened within the education system was they were told that they should fear cyberbullying, paedophilia, etc. So they didn't believe it was an asset in their life. So given that, I went to BIS and asked if there was a skills agenda around apprenticeships in business, and in fact on the 17th of March 2011 I blogged a blog called SMA meets SME, Social Media Apprentice meets Small to Medium Enterprise, and about 100 members of our community straight away said I would take on a digital apprentice if one existed. And of course there were some fantastic apprenticeships existed within the digital sector, but none that was particularly relevant to the small business sector, and none that was that pathway for a young person, really leveraging what they understand in mindset as well as skills about how you connect as a friend online. So I then asked if it was possible for me to create that apprenticeship, and then opened up a hell life for me for the last 3.5 years. And I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because there has been some great pleasures in that journey, but it's also been incredibly challenging as an entrepreneur. So what are some of the lessons that I've learned with Digital Youth Academy? Well, first of all, I've learned the complexity of this world, and I honour all of you that you've managed to keep up with the constant changes in funding regimes and how that works. I've also learned that the social capital that I had built, the brand that I built in a sector of employers, how powerful that was in moving into new sectors and being able to innovate and create those sectors and have that credibility. And I have to thank the further education sector for being so incredibly welcoming to me as an employer or representing a group of employers. I have found the leadership within FE absolutely fantastic, really innovative, really exciting, extremely collaborative towards me, and I have some real heroes in that industry, in that sector, that I love to celebrate in my heart. But obviously FE has many, many challenges, and as Digital Youth Academy couldn't get a skills funding agency contract and deliver directly, we needed to work with the channel. And I've always worked with channels, and I really wanted to do that. I thought that that would be fantastic. How better way of building a brand, understanding an industry and working nationally. There's no other better way other than that, to work with a channel. And I'm very fortunate, I've met over 50 further education colleges. I've been able to speak at conferences, and I've really, I would say I've now maybe reached an A level in understanding your world. But you change the goalposts daily. Also working with some private training providers has been amazing too. They obviously offer a huge amount. My journey into this started with me being asked to do a focus group in Milton Keynes by my investor to see whether or not it was a viable idea with some young people. And I went into a room in Milton Keynes with 30 NEETs, all hooded up, more terrifying than talking to a group of 5,000 businesses at a conference. And I was told by the manager of that centre that I might be very lucky and be able to hold their attention about 15, 20 minutes. 3 hours later, he came in and asked, what the hell are we doing? We had the most fantastic time because I said to those young people, these skills you have, and they all had their smartphones, even though some of them were virtually, they were sofa surfing or whatever that term is. I said to them, you're the fuel of the economy. We need you. And we need you to be motivated to create this commercial pathway because the UK cannot survive and thrive and grow unless you are excited by the prospect of being that fuel. And we had an amazing time. We ended up trooping out and going to a news agency, buying loads of magazines, spreading them all over a table, and coming up with a brand together about what they wanted this brand to be and how aspirational they wanted it to feel. So that was exciting for me. So as I moved through trying to learn this, I realised that there is a challenge around digital for people. Digital isn't IT, it's not marketing, it's not economics, it's not any of those. It's a hybrid of all of those. So where does FE place and recruit from? Do you place it in the marketing department? Do you place it in the IT department? Or do you have to give birth and incubate a whole new way of thinking about business? Because what we know absolutely fundamentally is by being socially connected, by going through what you would term the digital marketing room, socially connecting through Facebook and Twitter, you learn the behaviour of a digital world. You see how people talk, how people act, what people want, what their pain is, what their needs are, and you therefore innovate within that. But the biggest challenge we have is people put digital marketing in a marketing department, and sometimes in an IT department. But it's not that. I liken that to when I joined that company in 1983, Bitech. I remember being shown an induction, the 8 or 9 different departments that I needed to go through to understand the business. And I was introduced to these 2 wonderful ladies in customer services who said, we love our customers, and they could speak for hours solving a customer problem, and they did everything from their heart. And everywhere else around the organisation, the customer wasn't given such a nice brand.
My pleasure to introduce a colleague who's already been referenced to you, Bev Jones. And Bev always gets very nervous because I reference her as a digital guru amongst other things. And the other things are a long list, and they include developing and leading award-winning employer-led education over many years, and certainly leading a number of pioneering projects across the UK with a number of organisations. One of the things I'm particularly proud of at the Trust is that we have access to experts like Bev. Bev is our Director of Operations, but she also wears other hats and working with other organisations including the Education and Training Foundation and Coralesque. She's most recently written a report on women in technology and how to help and engage young girls into digital technology before they disengage, and indeed has taken on the ominous task of getting me to use Twitter, which I'm working on developing.
Which is the hardest job ever.
But I'm on it. And very seriously, a huge advocate for getting young people into employer-led and career-led education. Bev is going to take us through some of our support services and highlight to you some of the resources that we bring to you as career college sponsors and leads. So I'm going to hand over to Bev. Thank you.
I'm also conscious that I've got the graveyard slot, so if you start nodding off, I won't take it personally, but I will get you to jump up and do some exercises. I am going to try not to take too much time, but I do have a tendency to waffle on, so if you're getting bored, just wave your hand. I'm going to go through the services, the CPD and the resources that as a career college trust we are providing to you, and really encourage you to make the most of them. Many of you are quite self-sufficient and don't ask us for very much, but we want you to see us as a central resource who will provide you with all of this information, CPD services and resources. You've heard from Lord Baker and from Penny Power that we've launched a digital strategy for the career colleges, and we thought that that was really important because digital is affecting, as Penny was saying, every strand of our life at the moment, and whether a young person is going into hospitality, creative, digital and creative, or engineering or construction, they will need to develop really good digital literacy skills. You'll all be familiar with the Feltec report, but you may not have read the Lord Select Committee report, Make or Break the Digital UK Economy. That's how sad I am. But that references, along with the Feltec report, the need to support young people to become digital workers as well as digital citizens. But also, importantly, it also references the need to ensure that the people delivering our educational training, in whatever phase of education, primary through to higher education, are digitally skilled and literate themselves. And they're using technology and digital apps to maximum when they're delivering teaching and learning. So we are really proud today to be able to announce to you 2 new initiatives that we will be rolling out in September 2015, I nearly said 16 then, 2015. The first one is in association with Corales, who some of you may have met Christina over the morning. So we're offering within the staff within your career college part of your organisation the opportunity to undertake an individual digital skills diagnostic. It's a self-assessment, it's very friendly, and it starts off by asking them where they think they are on the scale in terms of using technology in their everyday lives. Because we believe teachers who use technology in their everyday lives are much more likely to transfer those skills into the classroom. So Corales will be undertaking this piece of work for us, and anybody who's already in the Career College network will be coming round to you in September and offering you an opportunity for your staff to undertake this initial assessment. They will get a report back which identifies their skills. We will also do an analysis for each of the individual career colleges and overall for us as a trust around skills by role, and therefore what CPD we need to put in place as a result of that, which you can also then take forward in your organisations. In addition to that, we also believe that the way to transform teaching and learning is to have a champion within the workforce who is able to use technology and roll those skills out to other people. So we will be funding 1 digital champion per career college, not per institution. So if you have the luxury of 2 or 3 career colleges, you will be able to have 2 or 3 people trained in becoming a digital champion. Now the training is an online CPD programme. It does lead to a level 4 qualification. It's a nationally recognised qualification accredited by NCFE. But the most important thing about the online CPD programme is it's about using technology and applying it in teaching and learning. So whoever you nominate as a digital champion will learn to use different apps right from the beginning of the programme, but as part of that journey they will start to use technology and different apps in the teaching, the planning of teaching and learning and the delivery of teaching and learning. We're hoping that that then provides a catalyst for you to have your own digital champions who can then roll out that training in your own organisations. And if you want more information about the qualification, Corales have some information on their stand, which I noticed many of you have already picked up. And the qualification is called the Technology Enabled Educator Programme. So that's what our digital champions will be doing. Who have I put there? Jerry. I thought Jerry would love to be in the photo. Heidi, is that you, Heidi? No? No. Who came from Yeovil, Deb?
Oh, Peter.
Peter. So this is an interactive session at one of our CPD programmes, Managing Entrepreneurial Student Experience. Some colleagues in the room were at this session, and it's just to give you a flavour of some of the sorts of CPD that we have on offer. So we concentrate our CPD initially on the 8 themes that we monitor during our monitoring visits, but also as we go through the year, we identify other areas where we feel staff need CPD. And a big priority that many of you are talking to us about is the delivery of maths, English and science. If you're an existing career college, apart from 2 who've recently been approved, you will have been sent an annual planner. So what we're trying to do in our annual planner is give you an overview of the type of CPD that we are commissioning on your behalf. And we're not expecting you to send all of your staff to these CPD sessions, but the most relevant members of your staff. So we've gone for the model of using an annual planner, because what we want you then to do is look through the planner and look at what CPD you need most for the staff working in your career college, and come back to Alina, who will be contacting you over the next 4 to 5 weeks. And we will develop an individual planner with you around your CPD needs. But do also have a look at it, because we have put on here key dates like National Science Week. Because quite often, if you're like me, you notice the week before that it's National Science Week next week, and you completely miss the opportunity to build that into the curriculum, to build it into publicity or open events. So do look at the planner, because we're trying to make it a real key resource for you. So English, maths and science are a big priority. Many of you have already had your first round of project-based learning with our trainer Sharon Moore, and I think across the board it has gone down really well. The evaluations have been incredibly positive. We have 1 or 2 career colleges still to catch up with that first round of training, but we don't want to offer you training without really being able to see the impact and measure the impact. And so we're also offering the opportunity for at least one of your teams in your career college to come back in October and have a sort of a midpoint session on project-based learning. And really importantly, in January, we're offering you the opportunity to come along with an employer, because we think the next stage in developing project-based learning is about the employer developing projects with you. And we think there's a real benefit in collaboration. So we can see someone from Bromley coming with an employer, someone from Hubert coming with an employer, and the 4 of them really shaping some project-based learning that could be implemented in both organisations. And the same with all of our other strands. So do have a look at the planner, because all the dates are on there. The slide I showed you was around the entrepreneurial manager training. We're repeating that in November, and I've already mentioned the digital literacy and the effective use of learning technology through the digital champions. You'll also notice in the planner that we have highlighted 1 Friday afternoon per month. Experience has shown us that a Friday afternoon is the best time of the week to run a webinar for teaching staff. So the webinars are open at the moment, and we will be populating them with key themes and topics that we think are important in terms of CPD. But we welcome you participating in those and leading those. So if there's a topic that you particularly would like to run an online training session in, then we'd love the opportunity for you to lead that session and cascade to other members of Career College Network.
Well, the reason behind Recruitment Jack is when I started as an apprentice, it was hard for me to find a job. There's so many agencies out there, so many platforms to go online and look at, but I applied for so many jobs, but they always come back and nothing comes back. So then I thought, I went into an apprenticeship, got promoted, won Employee of the Year, and then recently, 10 weeks ago, I've started a new concept for social media called Recruitment Jack. So it has 2 meanings. It's Recruitment Jack because it's me, but it's also jacking back the recruitment from people getting stressed when they're looking for a career, no matter if it's at the beginning of your career or towards the end of your career, I think it shouldn't be stressful. It should be easy, and you should be able to have all on one platform. So what we're doing, we're putting all that information on one platform. We're getting rid of all the agencies that charge 6-7 grand for one placement, and we're putting it all on one platform. So when you apply for that job, you know that you want that job. You know how much it's going to cost you to get travel. You know how long it's going to take you to get to work. So we're putting that all into a social concept.